The Mystery of BELICENA VILLCA. Fourth Book. The Story of Kurt von Saubermann. Chapter 2. As a medic, in the first days of the convalescence, I comprehended that this would be long, so, disposing of enough time, I did not see any reasons to not tell my adventure to Uncle Kurt. I never experienced the desire to share my business with anyone, and I have never had confidence neither. But now, it was different. Since the day of the schism, I came bemoaning because I had nobody to trust, someone enough spiritual as to not scoff about the events occurred around the death of BELICENA VILLCA, but who could also dispose of the necessary freedom to assume a knowledge that implied so great dangers. In a given moment, I thought to resort to Teacher Ramirez, but then I felt ashamed about this selfish idea that could put in danger the life and mind of this exemplary man dedicated to his professorships and family. I was disgruntled since then, because I felt that I was starting to manage ideas that were too big, too inhuman, that could perturb me if I not shared them. Hence, that suddenly a man resuscitates the past of my blood to whom I never dreamt to met. A solitary man like me, of action. An experienced man, and in an age in which is not feared for life, due to the death begins to become a reality. Yes, I thought decided I'd trust everything to Kurt. At the beginning, we talk about trifles, because we avoided to tell our secrets. I didn't reveal the motive of my visit, and he about the brutal attack of the dogs and his truncheon. I spoke him about my studies and parents. He explained me the techniques to obtain a good arbor of tuna. Thus, we stayed gaining trust, until one day, one of the last in which I kept bed, I said to him, "Uncle Kurt, I'd wish you to give me the briefcase that I brought with me." It remained in the car the night in which I came. For my surprise, Uncle Kurt opened one of the doors of the closet, and extracted from a compartment the briefcase that, apparently, has remained there all the time. I opened it, and extracted the letter of BELICENA VILLCA, and some notes that I've taken when I spoke with the Teacher Ramirez. "I'm going to explain you the motive of my visit," I said, trying to transmit the importance that the matter deserved. "Is a fantastic and unbelievable story, and I seriously think that I only dare to tell it to you without reservations and fears." Uncle Kurt arched his eyebrows, vividly interested in something that, at least for me, seemed of extreme gravity. The words and the tone that I employed created the appropriate climate for it. With 3 o'clock in the afternoon of any common day, we had lunch in the serene stillness that reigned in that lost ranch invited to the dialogue and confidence. We had all the time of the world in our disposition to take advantage of it as we pleased. I began to narrate the known events and, if any doubt I kept about the credibility that Uncle Kurt could give to it, this soon had dissipated. Visibly altered for some passages, and gained by the impatience in others, he interrupted me constantly to ask for details, and, after that he obtained what he wanted, he encouraged me to continue in an authoritative tone that was unknown for me. The case of BELICENA VILLCA had captured his interest completely, but, when he knew about the existence of the letter, he seemed to lose his head. I extracted it from the briefcase in that moment, and I had to make an effort to avoid him to pluck it from my hands. Was my intention to permit him to read it, but not in that moment but later, when I finished relating what happened. I showed it to him, then, and I continued with the narration without perturbing me for the anxiety of my uncle, who was making a great effort, evidently, wait to read it. I explained, in general lines, the objective of such posthumous letter, without entering in details about the incredible history of the House of Tharsis, mentioning only the millenary persecution that had suffered by the Gallene Druids. I spoke about Beret and Bishar, and my conviction that they were the real murderers of BELICENA VILLCA. In that point, it seemed that the eyes of Kurt were going to get out of orbit. However, his lips remained sealed for the surprise. Finally, I referred him the translation that Professor Ramirez did about the legend, Ada Absichtraomachwch, and its posterior allusions to the Galeen Druids, what confirmed in my opinion the veracity, if not of all, of great part of the content of the letter. Here the charm ended, and Uncle Kurt, getting up with a jump, screamed, "Yes, Echiro. The Druids. To them, I was expecting the night in which you came. 35 years later, I perceived the unequivocal sign of their presence, and I knew that in any moment, I'd be attacked, although, I ignored why they had waited so much, why they reappeared now. And now, I know why. Because, you're coming to me, keeper of the greatest secret." Was a roar, what emerged from my throat at pronouncing these phrases in German, being answered immediately by two prolonged howls of the docks, one floor below, and out of the house. I felt amazed, because Uncle Kurt had always spoken in Spanish, because my domain in the German idiom is bad as consequence of my parents' decision to form me as completely Argentinian, at the point that they neither spoke this language among themselves. It didn't escape to me that, no matter how strong I'd have screamed, the dogs could not have heard it. The how, they have responded him. I was looking at my uncle, with other eyes, to whom till that moment had as a man, as many others, tortured by the remembrance of the days of the war, but, otherwise, completely normal. I was understanding, slowly, that there was something else. Uncle Kurt had a secret knowledge that weighed enormously on his consciousness, relived now by my narration. Uncle Kurt was some 62 years old, but he impressed because seemed to be 10 years younger. Tall, till the exaggeration, I calculated 6 feet 3 inches, he was husky, of athletic complexion, and it was appreciated that he maintained himself in form. The hair, which had to be black, now was grey, cut and very short. Cerulean eyes, plenty eyebrows, mouth of fine lips with a thick moustache, and firm chin, completed his description. A detail, perhaps, was constituted by the cicatrix that furrowed his left cheek, enhanced by the red of his blushing cheeks, sign of health for his age. He liked to wear simple, but sportingly clothes, and I always saw him using boots of thick chamois. In sum, he was an awesome man. More now that he seemed to blaze with anger by his eyes. He was walking some minutes around the room, with the hands behind, where he hid the letter of BELICENA VILLCA that I just gave him. I kept respectful silence, albeit intrigued for this reaction. We have spent many hours talking while outside darkened rapidly. The room was in shadows, when the old Juana entered and turned the light on. Jesus Christ. Don Sereno, why you're in darkness? The dinner is ready. I'll bring to Mr. Echiro his food. The old woman smiled as usual before he went out. This intromission calmed Uncle Kurt, who was still spinning pensive. He stopped at the feet of my bed with the hands supported in the black paint and, in correct Spanish he said, "Nif, I think that you've brought me an answer that I expected for decades. If it is thus, I could die in peace, when all come to an end," he said mysteriously, "but tell me, what brings you exactly to me? Why you came to see me?" I wanted to find out the motive that the SS had. "To collect all the documentation of the Druids," I replied. "When I thought on it, the remembrance of that night, 35 years ago, when you gave me the Iron Cross came to me. Was an intuition, because immediately, without any apparent motive, the security assaulted me, that you would know how to respond these questions. Then, I knew thanks to my mom, that you had been officer of the SS. And here I am." Ha, ha, ha. He smiled admired, with such uproarious laugh that he released when he discovered me in the stairway of Cirillo's, when I was a child, and that I remembered so well. "You have supposed good, Nif," continued Uncle Kurt. "I can tell you some things that would result useful for the resolution of your problems. Things about the esoteric doctrine of the Black Order SS. Nevertheless, through an inevitable and significant design of the gods, will surprise you, to check until what extreme were my hands the answers that you were searching for. But, let's have dinner before talking about it. He left, leaving me consumed by new queries. From his previous exclamation, appeared clearly another mystery. How Uncle Kurt had kept contact with the druids, who, apparently, were chasing him to death since years ago,